The lines of text as everything ran through checks confirming it was working was only barely grabbing my attention as I slowly sat up and stretched a bit. Feel all right? Feels all right, I confirmed, as I looked at my system. Raven Microcybernetics X-Disk Adaptation X-Disk 00. Raven Microcybernetics RAM Upgrade Adaptation RAM Upgrade 00. Camillo RAM Manager Adaptation RAM Manager 02. Rostovic Self-Ice Adaptation Self-Ice 00. Yeah, that looked pretty good. 4 new pieces of equipment, but only one of them causing any adaptation issues? Kid? The Camillo is causing some feedback, I think. Nothing major. I informed Vic like a good patient, and he pulled up his screen looking things over. Nothing I can see. He mumbled. You sure it's the Camillo? He rumbled, his hands tapping at his screen. Yeah, 100%. Could be anything though. I'll let you know. I reached up and ran a hand over the back of my head. The cut-off point between hair and chrome felt a little tender, but Vic hadn't passed me a max doc just yet either since Hiromi was still here. Something's wrong with it? Hiromi in fact cut in looking concerned and I shook my head. Probably just a compatibility issue. Or it could be something about space. We did just stuff a lot of junk into my head. Yeah, good thing you had so much space in there to work with. Vic joked and I huffed at him while Hiromi broke into giggles. Mind if I grab a few more scans before you run, kid? If you say there's something up, I'd like to peek. Oh. That's a good idea actually. I just realized I might be able to do more than just come to Vic for help. Adaptation solved the connection from cyberware to meat, but what did that actually look like? What did it actually do? Vic had gotten scans of before and after before now, but I'd never told him about adaptation. Not directly. Hiromi, can you go grab me a drink? Got a weird taste in my mouth. I asked her as I sort of wobbled, trying to show that I wasn't ready to move around yet. Yes. I'll get it. Hiromi raced off. Thankfully, while Vic had looked confused at first, he relaxed once he realized I was looking to speak to him privately. Kid? You know about my healing? I told him in a whisper, and he looked towards the door where Hiromi raced out and leaned in. Yeah? I get. Alerts, I guess you can say, when Chrome isn't quite right. It heals, so to speak, over time. His face scrunched up a bit as he thought, his free hand up rubbing at his 5 o'clock shadow as he considered what I had just said. I've noticed you get used to Chrome quick. He trailed off at the look on my face. It's more than just getting used to it. It's like adapting. Right now we just plugged the Camillo in, and there is something not perfect about it. Take your scans as much as you can, and when I adapt to it, we can do it again and see if we can find what the issue is. I figure it might be helpful. If it's something I can see on a scanner, or some data alterations, then yeah, that would be very helpful. He rolled away suddenly, and pulled out a hard drive from his desk. It's a fresh drive. I don't want to leave this on the normal server, he explained as he slotted it into his scanners, and motioned for me to rest back. A minute later Hiromi arrived carrying a soda, and I had to wait as Vic's scans were very sensitive. Hiromi came home with me, the two of us camping out on the couch once all was said and done, and I finally had a chance to close my eyes after a few more hours of watching bad TV with Hiromi to get my 8 hours. I woke up in the morning feeling perfect, but with everything healed I could feel it. A hitch, so to speak, in my neck, only it wasn't there at all. The Camillo definitely caused some issues, and I'd have to be very calm for the next while until I could drop more points in to adapt to it. I looked at my stat screen. 1 stat point. It was supposed to be my intelligence 1. Ugh. I just wanted more levels. If I had more levels this wouldn't be an issue. Especially since the temptation was now there. Intelligence 14, 20, due to cyberization, maximum value has increased by 10. Breach Protocol 14, Quick hacks 10. Programming 13. I could raise intelligence to 20. I was no longer limited at all. Each of the 4 pieces of cyberware had given me an additional 2 adaptation for intelligence. I could max out a stat. Closing my eyes, I let myself just process. The temptation for ultimate power was definitely there. But I still needed to follow the rules. 1 point for stats, 1 for adaptation, and the one I was sitting on was for stats. I was getting closer to another level up, another dive into the net, and I might get that. So while the irritation in my neck was annoying, and the temptation to just mash everything into intelligence was there as well. Slow and steady, I opened my eyes and pushed the point into intelligence. Intelligence 15, 20, due to cyberization, maximum value has increased by 10. And didn't feel any different. Intelligence is such a lame stat. I mumbled. Body made me all buff, reflexes gave me ninja movements, but intelligence didn't do shit. Stupid intelligence. Hiromi asked, and I rolled over to see her look up all bleary-eyed from her pillow. Nothing. Sorry. I whispered and reached over and pulled her blanket up around her shoulders a bit, and her barely visible eyes blinked a few times before she lay back down and Hiromi disappeared beneath her messy bed head and pillows. Hair. Hiromi was so cute, half asleep. I slipped out of bed without disturbing her again and stretched as I checked out the window. Sunlight warmed my skin as it slipped through the metal guard slats. If I knew Hiromi, she'd be asleep for another hour or so I should grab some breakfast or something. I slipped into my clothes and out the room without making a sound. My ninja skill too strong. Won't even wake up my bestie as she sleeps in. Laughing silently to myself at using my assassination and infiltration skill for such a silly reason, I slipped out of the apartment and into the elevator. While there, I looked once more at my screen. I exhaled. I'd be meeting Sasha sometime soon, so I really needed to level up my skills, and I really didn't want to overdo it, so I needed to start. Quick hacks 11. The loss of the skill point was well worth it, as I bridged over the gap from man to cyborg. I had a lot of versatility thanks to Breach already being over 10, but Quick hacks was an entirely different beast. Quick hacks. Demons that were designed to be uploaded and sent while in the real world, although using them in the net was the norm now as well. But at their base, it was about using a program. Scanning, configuring, uploading, activating. The basic steps for hacks, not quite covering everything, but it was an easy understanding. This was to begin the next step, before the previous step was even done. Configuring the hack as the scan happens, to upload the hack as it's being configured, to activate before the upload was complete. Reduction in time by a drastic degree. In the game of hackers, milliseconds mattered. In the world of the net, the one to touch the other first usually wins. I'd taken my first step beyond the human and into the cyborg. Not just using hardware, but using it in a way that was beyond just the human. Breach made me think closer to that of a digital entity. Quick hacks made me learn how those digital entities can attack. The first step in understanding what it takes to wipe entire groups of people at a glance. To become the digital goddess that my cybernetic brain was destined to be. Okay, that was a bit much. I wasn't out, but still. I grinned as the elevator door opened. Let's get some breakfast while I let my brain cool. Hiromi had to leave for school after our shared breakfast, dropping her off in front of Arasaka Academy. I drove off to find something to do with myself for the day. Honestly, with how full my brain felt with the quick hack level, there was only one thing. Okay, there were like a dozen skills I was still working on, but only one that was a priority. I headed to the dojo. A glance at my stat page reminded me just how close I was. A perfect cut. I know that's what I needed. Besides, I should avoid net diving for a bit longer to let the new cyberware settle. Doctor's orders. I headed back to Watson, back to Little China, and parked the Quadra in front of the dojo, reminding myself, I would need to do a new paint job on her just to give me some distance from the BD that I wanted to give to Judy. Another task to do, but that kind of stuff came after. I stepped inside, the early morning sunlight filtering in through the skylights giving the dojo a certain ambience as I headed into the actual dojo half of the building. Already there were a few students, and I instantly got some attention. Yuri. What's that? Ah, the Yuri is back, huh? Come to cause some trouble? One of the students, one I recognized as part of the guys that ate noodles with me after the last time I was here. Yeah. I'm right on the verge of what I'm looking for. I explained and got an interested look from the older man. That so? Trying to reach the Kensai state, huh? One of them said, and then got elbowed by a friend as they laughed at the idea. Ah. Well, I guess you could call it that. That's a bit pretentious though. I couldn't help but add, I might be a weeb, but like, going around calling myself a Kensai or something was pretty out there. Hair. Well, I know what you need. The only thing you really need. Gotta pull a live blade. He explained, and I instantly felt my lips shift into a frown. Shh. Don't say that anywhere, Sensei might hear. Another of the boys called out quietly, and they all laughed. That's not true, I said before I could think about it. You don't need a sharp blade or a good blade. If you're trying to become good with a blade, anything would work. You need the practice and the eye within the mind. Sensei put in and everyone went quiet. You are correct. What can a legendary blade do for someone that cannot see? Yeah, exactly. I snapped my fingers. Hi, Sensei. Kusanagi. You have returned. Unfulfilled? Yeah, I didn't find it. I said, a bit grumpy despite myself. I'm right on the edge though. Then grab your blade. I nodded, the other students hurrying away to avoid the look Sensei had on his face as they all knew they'd fucked up bringing up real blades. I got the feeling Sensei knew what his students were up to obviously, but still wished they used their swords for better purposes. Or I could just be wrong, and thinking better of him than he was. This was a Tiger Claw dojo after all. As I'd come to accept in my time in Night City. You could respect someone but still know they are terrible people. I grabbed a shinai and loosened up, feeling that slight tension in my neck, but that was easy to ignore as I turned and blinked in surprise. Sensei? Kusanagi, prepare yourself. He offered and raised his shinai up slightly above his head. Okay. All out from the start then. I breathed in, exhaled cold and moved forward to being our engagement. The sound of our shinai tapping each other was soft, neither of us was striking fully, instead seeking to find the chip in the other's defenses. That slip up, that ephemeral space that would allow our blade to connect. It was tough. Even with all my knowledge dumps, Sensei had his own experience, better reach, and a few more advantages. Who knew what cyberware the guy had? Either way I fought it with tireless motions, my condor giving me strength and endurance to match the knowledge dumped into my brain. More. I just had to find one more step. Finally, in a move I registered just a moment too late. Sensei activated his sandy and I barely jerked my head out from where his blade would have smacked me. The motion so sudden and extreme that his follow-up still tapped my shoulder, cutting me down. Damn. I cursed, then flinched at his look, but I stepped back and raised my blade once more. There was silence between us, broken up only by the whispering of the other students, most of which I could still make out as they weren't that quiet. Damn, still can't believe Sensei has to pull that move out. Right? She almost dodged too. I didn't even see it. I let the sound flow through me. Stop focusing on the unimportant. The blade was raised, and Sensei moved in, a simple strike, but hiding depth, and I responded, pushing it away. Our blades clacking as we fell once more into a rhythm. It was a speed that would have looked performative if it was back in the old world. Sensei had more than a sandy, his reflexes were obscene even without it, and I was already at the absolute human maximum for what a human could do. But this wasn't it. Where was it? That last bit I needed. The XP just refused to come forward. None of this was new. None of this was the final step. I shifted, pulling back and bringing the blade to my waist, as if it was sheathed. Something new. I just needed to do things I didn't practice as much. Surely. The draw of the blade slammed into Sensei's counter, returning once more to the pace, before I shifted, if this style didn't work. I held the shinai with one hand and went sideways and started poking. Rapier work was deadly, and faster than swinging. Sensei was pushed back for a moment, but he adjusted and simply held his defense, and I realized this wasn't it either. A few steps back earned me space and Sensei didn't chase me. The two of us looked at each other, well outside of the reach of each other's blades. Shifting, I paced a few steps, which he mimicked, each of us slowly shifting in stance and aggression and defenses, as we registered the other's shifts. Minute details stood out in stark contrast, a muscle stretching, a bit of weight shifting, a changing grip. All of these things meant something and I took them all in with my karoshi, my eyes never losing track of it all. I registered it this time, the slight shift of his ankle, the movement preparing, and then he blurred, but my Sandy was activated in turn, and instead of another desperate block our blades clacked and hammered at each other as Sensei shifted from his single kill stroke to a dozen blurred moves. The man was actually more deadly with his Sandy activated. As if he was more used to fighting with it on than without, a terrifying concept. I fought him off, my parry skill and reflexes stretched to the limits. Parry was the actions of normal swordsmen, human bodies, and human limitations. Activating the Sandavistan pushed us beyond that into a realm I was not truly experienced with. I understood the difference between cyborg and man. Despite my upgrade, Sensei was definitely beyond me still. His synergy made it so even if I was on the edge of human experience with a blade, his ability outstripped mine. But the shifting blades, the staccato sound of our shinai snapping and snarling for dominance. There was a flicker. An XP alert. I'd never fought someone like this. Hayato was good and had her speedwear, but she wasn't this good, or this fast. What's his name? Flash Guy. He'd been fast and skilled but not as fast, not as skilled. But Sensei going all out pushed me, showed me things, forced me to push forward. I pushed myself back, earning a half-second's distance. And let my Sandavistan cycle. And watched. Speed, blurring blade arcing for me, a flash of color not even able to register to my karoshi as an actual full picture. I raised my shinai, and the noise of a block echoed out. Then another as I shifted, keeping my blade close, minuscule movements to block the extremely fast blurring blade. I failed. A strike landed on my shoulder, but another was blocked and pushed away only to be struck on the other shoulder. Neither Sensei or I stopped. Understanding flashed as our blades hit. He was going to push until I succeeded or failed. But he didn't understand. I was a gamer. There was no chance of failure. Then it happened. I pushed a strike away, feeling the next strike in the way the blade had pulled away and raised my shinai blocking the strike to the top of my head. And my blade blurred out sliding along that blocked blade as I flashed. Sensei pulled away suddenly going still, his Sandy obviously cycling as well, and he looked and checked at his hand. Where my shinai had smacked him, a red mark already visible on his skin. 100 blades XP gained. Blade skill level up. 1 perk point gained. I exhaled cold just to keep myself from swaying. My mind already filled from quick hacks was flooded. Blade 10. I understood. My blade fell from a guarded stance to my side, as I instantly selected the perk I'd always planned for. There were others I noticed as I scrolled down, new ones, maybe even better ones for pure swordswork, but I wasn't concerned so much about fighting a swordsman better than me, I was more concerned with fighting someone that wasn't a swordsman at all. The perk was selected. Bullet parry, with a blade in hand, parry bullets. I see. I understood why you needed to be Blades 10 in order to achieve this. How could you parry what you couldn't see, if you hadn't reached the point of no longer needing to see? My shinai was raised as I felt it, a shift in wind, and more, and the sound of a shinai stopped from smacking into me echoed out. My eyes opened and I saw Sensei standing before me, blade stopped. The look on his face was shock, but more than that. He stepped back, falling into a high-cut stance, and moved. How could parrying a blade be harder than parrying a bullet? The tip of my shinai reached out and touched Sensei's descending blade, and simply shifted it to the side. He adjusted and swung out, but there was nothing to strike. I took a step back before I'd even finished deflecting his first swing, and his second hit nothing. There was a silent moment. He held his blade like he was going to try again, but instead he shifted it and brought his hands together and bowed. I returned the move, and then I guess the spar was over. Phew, I said, finally breaking my silence, wiping my sweat-covered forehead a bit. That was pretty intense. The man was silent for a while, instead his eyes were locked onto me, like he was trying to figure out a puzzle. Motoko Kusanagi. Ah, yes? There is someone I believe you must meet. He asked, and to my surprise the expected order at the end of his sentence. I looked around at the quiet staring students that were trying to figure out what just happened, and so I just shrugged. I still had some time, and to be fair I had just completed one of my biggest grinds. So I was in a great mood. Sure, to my surprise Sensei offered me a ride in his little Mahir Supron. The van was not exactly the sort of vehicle I would expect from a man with so many tiger claw connections, but it was kinda fitting. In the back there was a ton of junk from the dojo, extra shinai and stuff. The only stop we'd made was at my quadra to pick up my actual katana. I had a feeling something odd was happening, but numbers gone up made everything pretty happy in Motoko brain right now. Blade 10. It wasn't so much a huge jump in knowledge this time. There were no further sword stances, or ways to swing a blade, it was more instinct. Swinging a blade was a way to kill, being able to sense such a thing was. I wasn't sure if it was key, magic, or just some strange instincts, but I was willing to bet more towards instincts. I could register the smallest changes to sense when I was about to be attacked. The senses needed to tell when a bullet was being sent my way. The senses needed to know when a blade was drawn. Sensei was quiet as we drove out of Watson, and then up into the hills above Westbrook. North Oak was something I knew about well enough. I'd often end up driving up here when Hiromi and I were just driving around. And then we stopped in front of a landmark I knew well. The shrine? Yes. Sensei responded back with a monosyllable. Fine, be that way. I huffed as I stepped out and followed the man into the shrine. The monks noticed us of course, but not even the fact I was carrying a blade made them approach as Sensei simply walked under the torii and then into the main shrine. There was a monk there, an older man, probably about the same age as Sensei, who nodded at our approach and then turned, guiding us even further inside. Weird. We entered the main shrine, which was supposed to be more private, I thought. Wasn't this where the kami of the shrine was meant to live, and so no one was supposed to really enter? I mean, I wasn't the most caught up on Shinto beliefs, but I think that's what I remember from too much anime. Fuck, don't tell the monks all my knowledge of their religion comes from anime. We stepped inside, and to my surprise there were 2 other monks inside, the 2 of them sitting Caesar facing the door. The monk that guided us walked across and joined them, all 3 seemingly not even looking at us. Sensei moved in slowly, seemingly guiding me, and I followed before taking a Caesar seat before the 3 of them. The middle monk made a noise, an old man, with eyebrows practically flowing off his face, but it was the crone that stood out to me. The guy. He wasn't meat. That was a full Borg, an FBC, a Gemini, but not really hiding what it was, which was a bit weird. I took this in instinctively. He was in a Gemini, but there were still traces of chrome appearing, his neural link was beefy and he had a sandy, but... yeah. That was a Gemini. I was sure of it. But then I felt it, a prickling lightning shooting up my spine, a shift in the wind, a smell in the air, the flash of light glittering off a bit of dust flowing through the room. My action was instinct, blade drawn and raised to guard my right side as suddenly there was a shriek of a blade on blade. The old man had moved so fast there was no registering it at all. In his left hand was a small wakizashi. Tanto? One of those types, and it had swung out. He'd simply leaned forward and swung at me, and I'd blocked it. I was going to step back, to make another action but... Satisfied? I asked instead. He hadn't returned his blade, hadn't readied a counter. He had no intention of swinging it at me again. Do you know the meaning of this shrine, Kusanagi Motoko? The old man asked, and I had to blink as I shook my head. You see. This shrine worships a kami unlike those you will find back in Japan. We are Krumdenaya Jinja, the shrine of chrome, night, and electricity. The shrine of the modern kami. Wait. Was this literally a Shinto shrine to cyberpunk? Fucking cyberpunk, fucking Pondsmith. That's actually kinda funny. I don't know how that actually worked with actual Shinto, whether it was just something silly that was decided on or not, but I liked it. And you? You have reached enlightenment. One with the blade, in this electronic world. How do you respond to something like that? I just shrugged, even as I resheathed my katana. The old monk chuckled, smiling. You know, and yet are unsure. It is fine. Be proud of your accomplishment. It is something that men strive lifetimes for and still fail to achieve. I scratched at my cheek a little. It was kind of embarrassing to be talked up so much when it was just because I'm a gamer. You are the youngest in our records to ever achieve this. This shrine documents all those that achieve this within the city. We, the elders of the Krumdenaya Jinja, acknowledge a new Kensei has been born. The three all bowed to me, and I felt even more awkward. This felt like something big or something, and I really had no idea what was going on. Can I just go back to doing my own thing, please, crazy old guys? Okay? I asked, because I just didn't get it. Didn't really understand, but the old monk chuckled again. Of course, youth. Have no fear, Kusanagi, this is simply the tradition of old men. But there is a benefit to you. A katanakaji will forge for you a blade worthy of a kensei. I just nodded slowly. So, I'd get a new sword. Okay, that's kinda cool, IQs. Come, we request only one thing, for our traditions. And then from beside the monk on the right a box was laid out, and paper and ink. Please. He offered, and the main monk nodded as well. What do I do? I asked, half whispering to Sensei, who sent me a look like I was totally going to be swinging a shinai for a few hours in punishment. Calligraphy. They wished to understand a new Kensei's view of the blade. When I just looked at him blankly for a while, there was the tiniest of size. Simply take the brush and write out sword. The kanji is there. He pointed to the markings on the top of the box. I nodded cause I knew what calligraphy was, but I didn't know how to do it. I sighed and looked at the brush, ink, and paper. I closed my eyes. I hate when weird stuff like this is asked of me. I always feel like it's embarrassing. It's going to look terrible, and then they'll judge me for something that in their eyes is important, but honestly is just some weird stupid tradition, or thing they care about. I hate when people judge me for stuff like this. So what if I didn't know how to write well? Or my calligraphy was bad? I've never done this, and it's not important in my life. Fuck it. They want it? I'll give it to them. I breathed. In. Out. Cold blood crushed every inch of thought and feeling. I even stopped my heart for all that it was possible. I reached out, took the brush and swiped twice. Less using a brush and more cutting the stupid paper with a sword. There. I breathed once more, and my heart beat, and warmth returned to my soul. Okay. If that's everything? I kinda want to leave now. I decided and rose up before anyone could say anything. No way I wanted to look at some old men's faces as they critiqued my kanji. As if I even knew how to fucking write in Japanese. I only knew English, and worse English. No one stopped me as I headed out of the interior shrine, and then through the next building and out into the main paths. The sun was warm, there were people around, and that weird oppressive feeling of something happening around me I didn't properly understand washed away. Whatever. This wasn't important, I still had a bunch of stuff to do today, and I really wanted to go find Malcolm or something. I bet he'd shoot at me, if I asked him. I totally wanted to see what deflecting a bullet was like. Thankfully, before I got too antsy and just called my ride, Sensei stepped out from the shrine and motioned towards his car. Great. Glad that's over. Old monk. Teenagers. He remarked, amused as the girl fled. And yet. The eyes of them all were on the paper. The brush had done more than just mark the paper with ink. He raised the paper up and grinned as the light leaped through the black ink. A kensei so sharp she cut even meaning. A brush that cut through paper. Yes. It was always good to see a new wonder enter the world. Make the calls. His fellow elders nodded and bowed, not to him, but to the calligraphy. Enlightenment came in many ways, and from many things. Grumpy teenagers were usually not among them, but such was life. Sensei drove me back to the dojo without saying much, but as we stepped out he finally caught my attention. Kusanagi. Sensei? Do not foolishly believe yourself invincible because of your skill. Your death would be a tragedy. I blinked at his words and couldn't help but feel my lips twitching a little. That was actually kind of sweet in a way. Thank you, Sensei. I don't intend to die until I'm super old. There's too much I still want to see and do. Good. He bowed and I returned it. Then he simply shifted and walked into the dojo. What a weird situation. I had achieved my goal. Blades 10, and yet it felt different from any other 10 I've gained. Then again, this was the first combat skill that was physical. Quick hacks wasn't something someone could just see, and ninjutsu was on its definition about being unseen. Those old monks. I wonder how they'd have reacted if they saw me sneaking around. I shook off the thought and looked around. Nothing felt different, the city streets still felt and looked the same, but I couldn't deny that something about me felt different. Kensei. I wasn't sure I really bought into the mystical stuff, but there had been bits of it in the games. That one tiger cyber psycho that was all about ki and stuff. I guess he'd still be alive. Too bad I didn't remember what his name was, or I'd give a warning to Fujimura. I looked down at the sword in my hand. It was my thermal blade. My favorite. Sheathed as it was, its dangerous glow was hidden, but I looked at it, and knew that part of me was different. I held it differently, and yet the same as I ever had. There was a part of me that wanted to draw it, and go find someone. Anyone that would let me find out how different I was, but that was stupid. I'd already dealt with a big scav den literally yesterday. Well, there were still my tunes cause I really wanted to test out bullet parry. Cause that shit was super cool. I shook it all off. I had so much left to do. Hiromi would want to sell some of the scav gear we collected yesterday this afternoon, and I still needed to go see Judy. So I just slipped the sheath through my belt and relaxed. I could use something to eat, and then I'd go see Judy. I'd see my chums later this afternoon, and I'd bug Malcolm, or Rebecca if she showed up to shoot me then. Lizzie's bar was quiet, considering it was still mid-afternoon. That wasn't too much of a surprise. Unfortunately, there was no Rita. She probably worked more the night shift to help when things got rough, but I was waved inside without any issues and headed through and down. "Judy, you here?" I called out, despite being told she was. "Who's that? Motoko?" Judy called back as I poked over the entrance to her workspace. "Sup, Judy?" I greeted, and she blinked a bit sleepily at me. She must be burning the midnight oil despite it being past noon. "Huh. I didn't expect to see you again." "What? Why?" I asked as I slipped in and took a seat across from her, idly spinning around a bit. "It's been a while. I figured your little BD adventure was over." "Nope. Just hadn't done anything that I could really sell. Corpo stuff is a bit sketchy to put out, or gang politics. I had a big thing with 6th Street. I explained and she perked up as I said that. "No shit?" "Yep. They were out to flatline me, until I got proof there was some sketchy shit in the gang, ended up talking to their leader and giving him proof. Not exactly something I'd want to spread around, you know?" "Whoa. I don't know, that sounds kinda preem. You sure you don't want to spread it around?" "Oh yeah, I'm sure. But I got a new virtue if you're still willing. Sorry it's been so long." She gave me a look for a while trying to act stern, but she cracked with a smile. "It's fine. Nox is happy, and I guess if that's what you've been up to I get it. What's this one? Not some cyberpsycho shit again. Right?" I had to sort of trail off, cause the Onryo was not exactly. Not cyberpsycho shit. Okay, hold up. It's not that bad. I made a new quick hack and used it on some scavs that stole my car. They stole your car? Yeah. I think I'll call this BD. Don't steal my car. What do you think? That's certainly a title. You didn't like. She trailed off making grippy motions with her hands. "Oh no," I stabbed some gonks quietly, but nothing like the only thing they fear is you. Judy really didn't look like she believed me, but she slipped the shard I'd given her into her system. "All right, I guess. Let's do it." Preem. I cheered cause I was kinda excited. It had been a while since I'd made a new BD. Just as Judy was about to get to work though she hesitated and looked at her screen. I walked over and peered at the monitor and instantly noticed she was working on another BD. About 90% done too. Uck. Sorry Motoko, I need to finish this one first. Susie wants this one done pronto. Big client. Oh no worries Chum. I'm not in a rush. Whenever it's convenient. I waved at her and she relaxed. Preem. All right, let me get back to work. But if you want to do me a favor. Sure Chum. There's a shop down the street half a block that sells a new drink. Susie won't let me go buy it myself, but if you bring me a shock vault, I'll appreciate it. I looked at her, and the strew of energy drink cans, and other stuff across her workspace and felt a little bad. Okay, but just one. Maybe you should sleep. You look tired. Maybe when I finish this one. She waved me off and I raced away, bringing back her very high caffeinated energy drink and then fled before anyone suspected I'd brought it to her. Judy was happy though, so I guess I was happy. Sorry I'm late. I called out, as I pulled out of my quadra to see my chums already waiting for me. It's cool Chum. Malcolm waved me off and I grinned. Rebecca, Hiromi, Ichi, and Malcolm had all beat me to the meetup because I'd gotten a bit distracted. I'd had to send Sasha a message apologizing and needing another day before we did another training day. Everything that happened yesterday had sort of thrown my schedule off. Have we got a sale yet? Yup. Hiromi preened, tilting her chin up a bit as she sat on the back of Ichi's van. The crates of loot we'd secured behind her. Luckily this is a safe deal. Fujimura-sama was interested in some of what we found, so we're just waiting on him. I figured he'd be a safe offer even if you weren't here. I nodded as I walked over. We were at one of the secure lots that we'd taken to renting to hold goods, so that was a safe bed looking around. "Hey Malcolm, want to see something cool?" I asked, and I could feel my inner glee prickle up as he instantly pushed off the van. "Yeah, duh." I reached behind my back, pulled my Lexington, which caused a bit of concern from my friends, but I pulled the mag, made sure there was a bullet in the chamber, and walked over to plop the gun in his hand. Then I walked a bit away, turned and adjusted myself. "Shoot me." "No." Hiromi yelled, practically shrieking, but Malcolm was already midway through taking aim before he stopped. "Motoko." "Hold on, Crush, I want to see where Strings is going with this one," Rebecca called out from the back of the van as she swung her legs around excitedly. "No. We aren't shooting each other. It's not like he'll hit," I countered, and that of course earned me a lot of confusion from everyone. Malcolm even checked the pistol to make sure, and then he looked up at me when he was sure the bullet was actually inside. "Are you an illusion or something? Got your hack working that replaces you or something?" "Nope. That's an idea I'm working on though. The functionality of it all is a bit wonky, between RAM usage and trying to keep the demon that would be needed capable of actually replacing an entire patch of someone's vision, the Hiromi." Ichi called out, and I stopped to see what he wanted to say. "Just let Malcolm shoot her already. For all of our sakes." "Rude." I gasped at the audacity of this bitch, and he just rolled his eyes. Malcolm shifted from Lexington back to me, and back then he raised an eyebrow, and I nodded. "Ready." He raised his gun even as Hiromi continued to argue with Ichi, now upset at him calling for me to get shot. Rebecca was watching, having seen what was up. And then Malcolm pulled the trigger. No, that wasn't right. I registered it. The angle of the barrel, the way he was holding the pistol with one hand, the way the bullet would come. I drew my blade and swung, even as the sound echoed out, and then there was silence. "Did that just happen?" Rebecca spoke first, no longer just sitting back, but fully forward. "Tell me that didn't just happen." "Holy shit." Malcolm gasped, looking at the gun like it shouldn't exist. "Fuck yeah." I cried out, arms to the sky. "I am the queen of the blade." "Did what?" Hiromi whispered, shocked, and I danced around hooting in delight. Before turning to the brick wall and checking it. Yep, there it was. A bullet hole. "You just hit a bullet with a sword," Malcolm said, and I turned to him with my biggest shit-eating grin. "I have mastered the blade." I put on my fakest Japanese accent while saying it, and gave a little bow. "Okay, my turn," Rebecca called out, and I just laughed as Hiromi was even too shocked to protest. "Sure." I agreed easily, as Rebecca pulled out her own Omaha, and I grinned as I set up for another clash. "No, wait." The Omaha Hiromi called out, but it was too late. Rebecca fired. "No." I activated my Sandy. Again I swung, and then she fired. The cause and effect was off. The bullet sparked, my awareness shifted. Omaha didn't just fire one bullet, but a 3-round burst. The blade shifted in flight, and the second round pinged off in a flash of grinding metal, and the third I just barely managed to impose the blade, and instead of the simple deflection, this one spiraled up, but still missed me. Then all was silent. "Ha fires 3 bullets. Hiromi shrieked and then stopped, looking between Rebecca and I. "Yeah. We know." Rebecca and I spoke at the same time, sending each other a grin. "It was a good test," Rebecca offered with a shrug. "Also, that was Nova." "Yeah, if I can't handle a bit of rapid fire, what's the point of deflecting bullets?" "I just can't believe what I just saw," Ichi whispered, and I sent him a look. "I've been practicing the blade a lot recently. Finally got to the point where I could do it. Well, do it safely anyway." Hiromi attacked me right after I said that and started trying to throttle me, which was a little dangerous. I was holding a live blade Hiromi.